Hey everyone, this is the second part of the two-part series I was making on deciding between the universities. So if you haven't checked that out, I'm going to leave that link in the description. Go check it out. If anybody, one of your friends, is in the dilemma of which university to go for, send them this video. I am sure they're going to enjoy it. I'm sure they're going to find it useful. If you found it useful, leave a like, subscribe, and yeah, stay tuned for the video. So now the discussion comes between two universities, and my perspective has changed a lot. When I was coming to Purdue, my perspective was different. While I was at Purdue, my perspective was different. And when I worked for 2 years in the US, my perspective is a whole lot different. Okay. And I'm going to discuss, compare those both perspectives and break it down for you, what I think about brand, what I think about fees, what I think about batch size, and all of these factors. Alright, so the first factor we are going to look at is, of course, brand. Before me graduating, before coming to Purdue, I used to think that brand is like 9 out of 10. And after graduating from Purdue, I think brand is 7 out of 10. The reason why I think is first, brand will get you to your first job, but it's not going to help you succeed as much. It will help you get shortlisted in companies' recruiting efforts, but it will not help you get that job. It will not help you crack that interview. Let's take an example. So I worked at my previous employer, and there was another guy from UT Arlington. And UT Arlington, we would call it like a tier 2 university as compared to Purdue. Purdue CM is like one of the best programs. So while I was working with him, he was one of the hardest worker I've ever seen. He decided to go to UT Arlington because that was the best choice he had, and he didn't get a good score in GRE, so he decided to go to UT Arlington. We both were working at the same position, but he was a really hard worker. He showed his potential, and now when he would be changing his jobs, his UT Arlington brand would be there, but what would really count is how he talks and how he shows the work he has done. And that's the same with me. That's the same with people who are graduating from Virginia Tech. That's the same with people who are graduating from New Jersey Institute of Technology. So it's really similar when it comes to brand, but it helps you get your foot in the industry. But after a while, it's really up to what you work and how you work out things. And a lot of times people generalize universities. For example, UCs come under one bucket and UTs come under one bucket. So UCs mean University of California and UTs mean University of Texas. I've seen people, so you can sell yourself hey, I'm from University of California. You don't have to tell them if you're from San Diego or from Merced. Or you can say you're from University of Texas. You don't have to tell them that if you're from Arlington or from Austin. Now, when I'm talking about these scenarios is when you are talking to people in career fair. Of course, they're going to look at your CV when they do a deep dive, but at least it will get you through the first round of applications or through the first round of in-person interviews. Second, the visa situation. So before and after graduation, my perspective hasn't changed. If it's a STEM course, of course, go for it. Do not go for a non-STEM course, especially if you're going for a engineering course. Yes, there are some courses which are non-STEM. I would 100% recommend you to go for STEM courses because you get 2 years of additional visa in STEM and 2 chances of applying for H1B. So there's no doubt, there's no perspective change there. A STEM course is much better than a non-STEM course, unless you're going for a course which is non-STEM by nature, like photography or copywriting or accounting or some other courses like that. Number 3, fees. So before getting into Purdue, my ranking on it was 7 out of 10, whereas now it's 9 out of 10. If you can get any sort of assistantship, it would really, really help you get debt free quicker. As I mentioned before in a video, having a lesser fees is of course important. Okay, just because I had a fee of 37,000, that's why I'm able to pay back my loan faster, even when I'm not making as much money as a tech person would make. Of course, there are high paying jobs and there are low paying jobs. If you're going for a high paying job industry like MIS or optics or computer science or applied mathematics or HCI, these are high paying jobs. You know that you would be able to recoup your money quicker. But if you're coming for a low paying industry like architecture or construction or mechanical or electrical, then of course you would want to spend as less money as you can while choosing your university. Even now, if I think back, while I was at Purdue, maybe I should have put in more effort and gotten a assistantship in my last semester. That would have saved me like $7,000 of my fees plus living expenses for a few months. But that didn't happen, and I still have that debt going on. So having scholarships, having greater jobs, these really help lowering down your fees, and that's one of the factors which you should think about. There's like a bunch of videos on Dave Ramsey's channel. Dave Ramsey is a very prominent financial expert in the US. You can search for it. I'm going to leave his link in description. So what he talks about is like, let's say you're going for a doctor's degree, right? Like pre-med and medical. Of course, you're going to spend that much, but you're going to make that much as well. Whereas if you're going for a literature degree or a philosopher degree and you're spending $100,000 or $60,000, you will not be able to recoup that money because it's not a very employable industry. The most you can do is like you can teach at a university, but for that you'll have to do a PhD. So that's a longer run. Okay, so you have to think about all of these if it's a high paying industry or if it's a lower paying industry. Number 4th, campus in terms of living situation. So a lot of people are not familiar with cold. A lot of people are not comfortable with the hot weather like in Arizona. But I was comfortable with it. So before or after, my score is 5 on 10 because I was comfortable in Indiana. I would have been comfortable if I would have come to ASU. So in my terms, I wouldn't score it as much. But for you, it might be different. Maybe you don't do well in hotter weathers. Maybe you don't do well in colder weathers. Maybe you get depressed. Maybe you get, winter sick or something like that. So all of these, like this is one of the factors, like people really value the sort of weather they're looking for while they're going to US, and maybe you should consider that as well. In my scale, it is not as high. Number 5th, location. Now this definitely is one of the biggest factors, right? Like it comes at par with brand and fees. Now when we talk about location, there is like computer science. Let's say computer science, okay? A lot of people prefer Bay Area for computer science and New York for economics courses so that they can get into Wall Street. Now, there is a reason why it happens because there are so many companies which can hire you directly. Of course, they will hire people from New York because that's the talent pool they're looking at. Whereas people in tech companies hire from Bay Area. There is a notion to it. So if you're going to tier 1 university, if you're going to like Georgia Tech, if you're going to, let's say, Northeastern University, or if you're going to Texas A&M, UT Austin, these sort of universities, or University of Illinois Urbana Champaign, these are top universities. These are tier 1 universities. Doesn't matter, since these universities are not in the Bay Area, doesn't matter. Big companies are still going to come, and even small companies are still going to consider your application. But universities like UC Merced or San Jose State or CSU Long Beach, like these universities have a different sort of genre because they are so famous in CS people. So these people, like they do aim for Facebook and Amazon, but they might not be able to get right away. So they try for tech companies which are there, which are not such a prominent name. Like there are hundreds and thousands of tech companies in the Bay Area which are always hiring, right? And these guys kind of aim for that. So if you're going for a tier 1 university, you shouldn't really compare, like you should go for the university, it doesn't matter which location, because big companies are going to come and hire you, doesn't matter wherever you are. And especially with the COVID, like it has helped that you don't really have to be at the same location. You could be anywhere in the world and you could still be working from home. So that's a good thing. I have so many friends who are working from home remotely for like next 6 months or so, and they are getting paid similarly how they would get paid if they were in the Bay Area. So that's a good thing, right? But if you're coming from like a tier 2 university, tier 3 university, then you would want to be in those areas where there's a lot of prominent companies and they are picking up talent from there. I'll give you an example of Purdue CM. So Purdue CM is so famous that there are 150 plus companies coming to their career fair to pick up talent. It is in the middle of nowhere. There's no major construction company there. Most of the construction companies' headquarters are like in the East Coast and West Coast, but they all fly in to pick up the talent and hire from there because it's just a great course, and it's similar to like Georgia Tech's computer science. Purdue's Industrial. Purdue's Industrial Roundtable is one of the biggest career fairs I've seen, and I've talked to a lot of people, and even they have said that Purdue's Industrial Roundtable is one of the biggest career fairs for industrial and mechanical engineering they have seen. So if the industry and if the university's course is good, people will fly. Number 6 point, batch size. In my opinion, the smaller the batch size, the better it is. The more connections you have, the better opportunities for your assistantships you have. But do not leave opportunities if just because of batch size. Consider batch size like as a 4th or 5th point. I would look at the location, the course, and how much people are making afterwards. Rankings is one of the last factors you should look at. Rankings is like basically you should really look at rankings like, okay, if it's top 50 or if it's top 20 or if it's top 100, like in that way, because rankings are really skewed here. For example, if you look at QS rankings is really based upon undergrad diversity, undergrad population, the popularity of that university among researchers. There is like Times Higher Education rankings. All of these rankings really vary according to different factors. For example, like csrankings.org, that's a very high research page ranking. It's not how much employable you are afterwards or what's the salary people get. It's not based on that, but it's about how much research and how much papers are cited from students from that university. So again, ranking should be one of the last factors you look at, or one of the factors you should look at while you're just filtering out, okay, these are the universities I want to look at. Number 8, how much money can you get afterwards? So the way to check how much money students or seniors are making, the easiest way is go to LinkedIn and start looking up people. Start looking up computer science, Virginia Tech, or start looking like industrial engineering, Stanford University, and people will show up. You find one person, you find another person, you ask them, you find another person, you ask them, and see which companies they are working in, and go to glassdoor.com or go to payscale.com and see how much salaries they are getting. Glassdoor gives a pretty good range for like big tech companies. You can always go to myvisajobs.com and see like if they're applying for H1B, what are those salaries as well. So I've made a video about myvisajobs.com. It gives you a diversification on which companies have applied for H1B, and it helps you determine if a company, if they have applied for H1B, they hire international students. So that's a good metric to check as well. These were the factors which you should be looking at while you're deciding between two universities. Okay, there are some mistakes which you should be avoiding while you're looking at these universities as well. So the first mistake you should be avoiding is asking your seniors right away. You should really divide your seniors among 3 cohorts. The first cohort is somebody who just got to the US, they are in the first semester. The second cohort is somebody who's in their last semester who has done one internship. And the third cohort would be somebody who's working in the industry for, let's say, 1 year or 2 years. Because 1 year is a good time to know like, hey, what mistakes I made or what could I have done better. When you divide these 3 people in 3 cohorts, it really makes sense to ask the person from the third cohort, which is people who have some experience in the US. Because people who have just gotten into a US university, they can't really decide or they can't really tell you A university is better than B university because they don't know any from that B university. Or they don't know what is their employability like. They just know about their university. And in the first semester, everybody's on honeymoon period. So basically they love their university, they love the courses, they love the professors. But reality really hits when they start looking for jobs. You should ask seniors from cohort 3 and cohort 2 because they have some experience on how industries work, on how employability looks like in your university. Second mistake you can do is just looking at rankings and then deciding. Third mistake you can do is just deciding based on the scholarship you have gotten. Sometimes some universities give out like 25% scholarship or $1,000 scholarship. Just don't fall for that. A lot of universities do that to attract students because do a cost benefit analysis. I have made a video on return on invest. I'm going to leave that link in description. Check that video out. You will understand better what I'm talking about. Do a cost benefit analysis. With that $1,000 scholarship, would your fees be lower? Because sometimes people think like, oh, I'm getting a 10% scholarship. sometimes your fees end up being more with that scholarship as compared to the university you were looking for. So really compare the fees as well, really compare like how much you're going to pay, look at the I-20 amount, divide it into semester and see how much you would be needing for your course. And that was it. Thank you so much guys for watching this one. I hope you like it. All of the links I've mentioned will be in the description. Check out gradical.com and check out my previous videos. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please subscribe. And until then, I'll see you in the next one. Take care everyone.